We're live.
We're alive. Hope so. Good evening, everyone. This is the February 7th, 2024 meeting of the Irvington Planning Board. Note it's February, there's St. Valentine's Day coming up, so don't forget. It's also my 41st wedding anniversary. Minutes. Everybody okay with the minutes? The minutes of January 3rd, 2024. Everybody okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I make a motion to approve the minutes of January 3rd, 2024. Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, the batting order for this evening. Oh, let me introduce everyone, which is my normal thing. I almost forgot. It's Sarah Palermo is the gatekeeper on Zoom. It's Ed Marin, the village building inspector. There's Doug Hahn, the village consulting engineer. Marianne Stessich, Lori Davidowitz, Dan Ellicott. I'm Caesar Manfredi, the chairman of the board. Sounds like Frank Sinatra. Mike Smith and Mike Foucault. Okay, number one will be 88 Fargo Lane. 2 is 202 West Clinton Avenue. Number 3 is 50 Half Moon Lane. Number 4 will be 4 Oak Street. Number 5 is 9 Meadow Way. Number 6 is 39 Fargo Lane. 12 Main Street will not be heard tonight, even though it's on the list of events for this evening. There was a technical difficulty with the application. Number 7 would have been 8 Leewood Terrace, but the applicant withdrew their application today, as a matter of fact. At least that's when I got the notice.
Adjourned.
Carry over for next time. Number 8 is 61 Field Terrace, and number 9 is 10 Grinnell Street. Okay, going back to number 1, 88 Fargo. Do we have someone on Zoom to start?
Okay, good evening, folks. How's everybody?
Doing well. We hear you. And we
Thanks.
don't see you. Other than you.
Likewise. So yeah, I'm here to represent the owners at 88 Fargo this evening. We received our comments back from the town engineer and landscape.
I can't just say your name.
I don't think we heard your name and who you represent.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You missed it.
I did miss that. You're right. My name is Mike Jacobs. I'm an architect with Jacobs Chang Architecture. And I'm here tonight to represent the owners at 88 Fargo, Vasily Bakaloupas and Monica Drager. And Vasily may be in person this evening, but I'm just here to kind of address the application. This is our 3rd meeting. And I guess I'm here to kind of review with the planning board the application changes that we made and also address any of the additional questions that might arise.
Okay. Bring up the site plan. So
Yeah. All right, bear with me a sec. There it is. Okay. Is this visible?
we see a lot of words.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, there was a handful of comments. I'm happy to go through all 15 points and kind of describe to the board where each one of those has been satisfied. And I can also be a little bit more sort of tactical if there's specific questions. But essentially, one of the requests that came in last meeting was to include in our documents the photograph that was offered to us from the neighbor of the property to the east that we had discussions with over the view shed preservation. And so these 4 images reflect the images that we prepared and showed to the board at the first meeting, but essentially the view that was shared with us and how the model, the initial design, and then the kind of changes that we made when we presented to the board at that first meeting.
Yes, that's good.
Okay.
You do realize that the view preservation is not just to satisfy the neighbor, but it's in village code. So that's why it was
Absolutely.
net. To be
Oh, no,
included.
of course.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, then there was a number of comments. One of the other big questions that we addressed was the yard designations. As you may recall, Fargo Lane is at the bottom right corner of the page. This is a shared driveway which reaches 3 or 4 properties. And I met with the building inspector. The north side of the property, which is to the right, is now considered our single front yard. The side yards are sort of to the west and to the east, and then the backyard is to the south. So that's been established. Those changes were made to our zoning table and our worksheets. And what we see is that this area of that's existing, but this area of our proposal, which is maintaining the current existing setback, is in violation of the zoning setback. And so that's the portion that we'll be asking for at a zoning variance hearing. Some of the other questions that arose, would you guys like me to go point by point? How would you?
I think just an overview of the
Okay.
I don't think you don't need to go through point by point on the engineering, just the
Okay.
overview of what.
Fair enough. This image you saw last time, but we added some more clarifications on the tree table and specimens, and the landscape architect seemed satisfied with that. And in this particular site plan, which is the stormwater, we added some notes that the village engineer had requested. Of course, started to define better the outlines of construction sequencing, and some clarifications to the existing stormwater, which essentially are gutters to downspouts to grade and velocity dissipators where the downspouts come down. And then with all the new work, we're kind of carrying that stormwater below grade to an infiltration pit in this area of the yard.
Okay. Good. Any questions from the board?
I have no questions.
Mike?
No questions.
Mike LaFuco?
No questions.
Doug, all the engineering was
Yep.
all those questions.
To address everything.
Sarah, anything on Zoom?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Is there anybody here in person who wants to speak on this? So I don't have to ask that. You're here for 39 Fargo?
Yes.
Okay. So I won't ask every time unless you raise your hand. Okay, thank you. I think we're ready for a resolution. Mary Ann, do you have one?
Whereas in December 2023, Vasily Bakopulos and Monica Greger applied for site development plan approval to construct a 1-story addition and expand 2 dormers on their house at 88 Fargo Lane, which lies in the village's View Preservation District. And whereas the proposed construction intrudes into the required front and side yards, therefore requiring variances from the ZBA, whereas Hardin Engineering reviewed the plans and in memoranda dated December 4th, 2023 and January 2nd, 2024, made a number of comments which were addressed in subsequent submissions. And where Suzanne Nolan, the village's landscape architect, reviewed the plans and in a memo dated January 2nd, 2024, made recommendations which were complied with. Whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on December 6th, 2023 and January 3rd and February 7th, 2024. Proposed improvements would not have any impact on the view of the Hudson River from neighboring properties or public ways. The action is type 2 action under SEQA and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants site development plan approval for the construction reflected in the drawings entitled Fargo Residence prepared by Jacobs Chang Architecture, subject to receiving front and side yard setbacks from the ZBA.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Any questions on the resolution? No questions. I make a motion to approve the resolution as read by Mary Ann.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Number 2 is 202 West Clinton Avenue.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you very much. That should come out nice. Thanks, Mike. Next one is 202 West Clinton Avenue, and I will recuse myself, and Mike Smith will be acting chair.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Hello?
We're here.
We hear
Okay,
you.
I couldn't hear you for a second. Let me share my screen,
You just have to announce yourself and the project.
of course. My name is Cyrus Mandwabi, from Integral Engineering Services, 27 Main Street, Dobbs Ferry, representing the owners of 202 West Clinton Street, Stephen and Nadia Harrison. The last time we were before your board, Mr. Steinmetz had provided arguments for zoning variances, and we subsequently went to the zoning board for the coverage that's required. Since then, since we initially started this planning board process, site plan approval, we've reduced the coverages considerably. We started out requesting an extension of the rear patio, and now we have reduced it considerably, and we have shown the coverages that were approved by the zoning board. I could get into the project specifics if you would like, or I can answer any questions that you may have.
Why don't you describe what the project, just overall, what the project is going to be doing?
The project is really just to legalize what's there, and some modest changes to the barbecue in the back. But it is to legalize the hot tub and the rear patio. And the final conditions is basically just to use these modular pieces and push in the back and redesign the patio space to accommodate a table and chairs.
So on your plans, you had two options for stormwater. You saw that Doug Hahn's memorandum said option one was not acceptable.
I believe option one, well, there's two options, and I think it's important to provide those two options. Option one is per Chapter 5 of the New York State Stormwater Management Manual, and it's green building practices. Both options work from a calculation standpoint, but I believe that it's important that Chapter 5 is used more often in the village, as it's used in other villages, surrounding areas. Increasing groundwater tables is not the cure-all, and I believe that it does impact infrastructure, sinkholes, possible mudslides, and steep slope locations. But obviously for this project, both of them work. So we are prepared. We have prepared both options, and I think that
Doug,
option two is the more conventional approach.
Doug, do you want to explain why you said that option one was not acceptable?
Yeah, because when you treat stormwater in the village, you have to accommodate for the storage volume of the additional impervious, and planting trees is not a calculable value for the quantity there. Goes into the, I mean, they've designed the infiltration units, and that's what we use. for right now.
But the two options aren't on the current plan, are they?
Yeah.
Correct.
So you're not, wait, I'm sorry, I'm missing something.
This is a draft here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Your final says that. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
matter of
sorry,
fact, I
Mike,
didn't-
because I didn't have
At our
that.
meeting, I picked that, I didn't realize that there was two separate
Okay,
proposed, because I saw the unit, so.
okay, this all right, because the condition is it is subject to Hans memo, but I didn't see that in the version of the memo I have, so, okay.
Do you have the date though?
Yeah.
Do you understand that option one is not acceptable to us?
Correct. We understand that, and we're prepared to proceed with option two, but again, like I said, it's my opinion, belief that chapter 5 of the Stormwater Code should be applicable. Again,
That-
we are prepared to proceed with option two.
Well, that might be, but if we approve this, it's going to be subject to Mr. Han's memorandum. And that's only gonna be option two. So are you? Do you want to proceed with option two?
Yes.
All right, I have no further questions. Lori?
No questions.
I have no questions. No questions. All right. Mary Ann, do we have a resolution? Any comments from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
Mary Ann, we have a
Yeah,
resolution.
in July twenty twenty-three, Nadia and Stephen Harrison applied for site development plan approval to extend a patio and add a rain garden at their house at 202 West Clinton Avenue, which lies in the Village's View Preservation District. And whereas applicants were advised that there were a number of items on the property that were undocumented, and in August twenty twenty-three, applicants amended their application to seek site development plan approval of the additional items, including a deck and hot tub. And whereas the total coverage for which applicants sought approval exceeded the coverage permitted by the zoning code by 76%, which the planning board advised was unacceptable. And whereas the applicants further revised their application to eliminate the patio extension and remove a small side terrace, which meant coverage exceeded the code limits by 65%. And whereas Han Engineering reviewed the plans and memoranda dated June 5th, June 30th, July 28th, and September 1st, 2023, and January 2nd, 2024, made a number of comments, most of which were addressed in subsequent submissions. And whereas the planning board held a public hearing on June 7th, July 5th, August 2nd, September 1st, 2023, and February 7th, 2024. And whereas it is September 2nd meeting, the planning board directed the applicants to apply for a coverage variance to the zoning board of appeals, which granted the variance on December 29th. And whereas the proposed improvements would not have any impact on the view of the Hudson River from neighboring properties or public ways, whereas it's type 2 action under seeker and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants site development plan approval for the construction reflected in the drawings entitled Harrison Residence. Drawings are specified, prepared by Integral Engineering Services, subject to complying with the items in Han's memorandum dated February 5th, 2024. One of which items is you can't use alternative one.
Do you have a motion to accept the resolution?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 None opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck.
Very much. Have a good night.
Moving on to our number 350, Half Moon Lane. Well, we don't have any audio.
I was having some difficulty there for a second, Mr. Chairman. Here I am. Good evening, everyone. Brad Schwartz from the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz, representing the owners of 50 Half Moon Lane. I hope you were all pleased to see in our recent submission that this is now a fully zoning compliant project. There are no longer any variances required. Adam, if you want to quickly just walk the board through the changes that were made in order to achieve zoning compliance.
Sure. So as you can see, the pool patios have been eliminated. The pool was somewhat reconfigured, but again, within the limits of the coverage requirement. And the retaining wall that was shown previously has been eliminated in favor of a decorative stone garden that'll stabilize that slope on that corner. And that's really the extent of the changes that brought us under the required coverage maximum.
Also, you added an electric box, right?
Yes, that's correct. So between the last time we were before the board and now, it was indicated that we needed to have a meter stanchion on site. The utility did want to put it somewhere near the property line. We were instructed by the building department that needed to be outside of the setbacks. So you can see that here, and that obviously very small amount of coverage is also included in the coverage calculation.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments from the board?
Thank you.
I have no comments. Looks good.
Mike,
I have no comments.
Mike Bufuko,
Nothing for me.
Sarah,
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
I want to thank you for bringing it into compliance. It was a little bit of a rough road, but I think we got where we wanted to go. Mary Ann, do we have a resolution?
Yeah. Whereas on November 3rd, 2021, the planning board granted site development plan approval to Laxman Decide to demolish an existing one-story house and pool and replace it with a new two-story house and pool at his property at 50 Half Moon Lane, which lies in the View Preservation District. Whereas in March 2023, the planning board granted revised site development plan approval to permit the alteration of the approved drainage structure and permit a temporary construction trailer on the site. And whereas in December 2023, applicant applied for revised site development plan approval to add a retaining wall, walkway, and pool patio to the previously approved plan. And whereas the newest revisions would amount to an increase of 1,775 square feet in coverage, exceeding allowable coverage by 29.2%. And the planning board advised the applicant that it would not approve the increase in coverage because this was a newly constructed house and the proposed improvement should have been part of the original application. And whereas applicant submitted 2 revisions to the plans, the latest of which adds an electric meter but eliminates the pool patio and retaining wall and reconfigures the pool but does not require any variances. And whereas Han Engineering reviewed the plans and the memorandum dated December 4th, 2023, and January 2nd, 2024, made several comments that were addressed in subsequent submissions. And whereas the planning board held a public hearing on December 6th, 2023, and January 3rd, February 7th, 2024. And whereas the proposed improvements would not have an impact on the view of the Hudson River from neighboring properties or public ways. And whereas the type 2 action under SEQA and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved, the planning board grants revised site development plan approval for the construction reflected in the drawings entitled Desai Residence, and the drawings are specified, prepared by Insight Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture, PC. No conditions.
Okay, thank you very much. A motion, does anybody have any issues with the resolution as read?
Nope.
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? No opposed. All right, thank you very much.
All right. We appreciate everyone's efforts. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I appreciate our effort to bringing it back to intent, original intent. Thank you, Brad.
We heard you loud and clear, so we did that.
There's no tie tonight, that did it.
Next time, I didn't think I was still be in the office. I was be able to go home and put a proper shirt on, so I apologize for my attire tonight.
I think David's getting a phone call.
He's already texted me yet, so hang up. Good night, all. Thank you.
The next is 4 Oak Street, number 4 on on the program?
Hello, John Malone, Ferguson Malone Architecture, representing the Cooper family at 4 Oak Street. So as of last meeting, we were referred to the Zoning Board of Appeals, but also the board gave us advice to try to find a solution that might reduce the impact on the neighbor. Our client was interested in doing that, and so we adjusted the project program to allow that to happen. So in our letter, we sort of explained what we did. The program included improvements to the primary suite. The primary suite right now has a tiny, barely usable bathroom and no closet space. It has a closet space, one closet space. It's only about 18 inches deep, so you can't hang hangers in it. So the project program originally was to make improvements to the primary suite that included both a primary closet and a real primary bathroom. So the program has been revised to eliminate the closet space. So the client is willing to move forward with the project and find some other solution for the closet space. The room is very small, but they might have to store clothes in other rooms. And then also to eliminate the master of the primary bathroom and replace it with just a slight expansion to the existing bathroom. That existing bathroom has natural light being provided only by skylights, so there's no windows in that bathroom, which we think is a bit of a struggle, but that's the strategy we came up with to make sure that there would be no privacy concerns with second-story privacy concerns from the adjacent neighbor. And this allowed us, eliminating the space under that roof, the second floor space, allowed us to drop the ridge of the addition. So we've dropped the ridge of the addition further to sort of its minimum that it could to match the pitch of the adjacent house. The goal of the project, the other goals on the ground floor, we're still maintaining the addition of the bathroom for the powder room for the couple's elderly parents that can't access the stairs. So that's still in there, and everything else is still in there. The change to the site plan is minimal. There's no change to the site plan except for some planting changes that we made where we're replacing the existing arborvitaes that are there because they're failing, because they don't have enough light, and also the have snow damage because they're leggy and not growing, not having enough light to be thriving. And then we switched the approach to the existing fence. But I think our goal was to get our coverage and FAR and setback variance requirements in order before we go to the ZBA. So that's what we were hoping to be here for today. I can share screen if you guys want to look at it.
Yeah, when you show the elevations, so we can see the change from the second story addition to what you got now.
Sorry, I don't know how to say.
While you're looking for that, John, you said you took the arborvitae out. You putting anything back? I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah, we're replacing them with something that'll do better. It's a D-Runk boxwood that is it's better in low light, and it gets to it'll get to a height that's similar to what's there now, and it'll just thrive better than what is there right now.
I think Suzanne agreed with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the change, if we look at the elevations, you'll see here this dotted line shows the extent of the ridge in the previous version. Again, that height was to provide second story space for the primary bathroom. And so the primary bathroom is basically the addition is housed in this small chimney structure. So it's meant to look like a chimney engaged against the side of the building. So that's the limit of what we're doing for second story space. So you can see this is the end elevation here. There's a light line shown here that shows how the area was dropped. I don't think that I'm pretty sure that the previously proposed plan did not really have impacts on light to the second story windows of the neighbor's house, and I'm more sure that this does not as well. And the changes on the ground floor are sort of de minimis because there's already evergreen vegetative screening that extends beyond the height of those windows on the neighbor's second lower level. I think you can see here that section. That makes sense.
Okay. That little bump out, I'm sure it's gonna be an interesting roof insulation with the bump out cutting in around it. Oh,
Yeah, we did a detail for something like that on a similar project. Basically, the top of it is going to be glass, so it has to, it's a complicated detail, but I think that they need some natural light in that bathroom, and really that's the solution that will work there.
well, I'm sure you'll provide the architectural expertise to make sure it doesn't leak.
Yeah, or no, that'll be the company that we buy the skylight from. Yeah, I don't design skylights anymore. They always leak if you design them.
All right, thank you, John. We're going to, since there's so many variances in FAR and coverage, and this structure was before the ZBA, not the one you're proposing now, but a previous similar but bigger proposal was denied by the ZBA in the past. We, as in the last meeting, we would like you to go to the ZBA first before we do anything at this level. And I presume you didn't go to the ZBA. I didn't hear it explicitly you say that, but I assume you did not go.
Yeah, we didn't go because we assumed that we needed to have the FAR calculations confirmed by your board before we went. So that's why we're back.
I guess the FAR is less under this proposal. Is that not
Right,
correct?
right, significantly less. So the proposed overage is now 9% of allowable, and it's a reduction of 10%. It was, the original ask was 19% above allowable.
Okay. Thank you. Anything, Lori?
No, I think the neighbors are probably.
I think the neighbors are probably very appreciative of the revisions. So thank you.
Yeah,
I have no comments. Thank you.
Mike Smith,
I have nothing further.
Nothing for me.
Sarah?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
No, John, I'm glad the neighbors worked it out and you accommodated that with your architectural changes, and yes, hopefully everybody is happy with the results.
That would be great. That would be great.
All right, but we're not giving you a resolution tonight. We think it's best for you to go to the ZBA. And there's quite a few variances, and they did deny, what was it, 10 years ago or 8 years, whatever it was, a previous proposal. So it's better you go there first.
Okay, so we'll submit for the next one, and we'll be back with whatever we find out there.
Okay, we'll see you later in the meeting, I guess.
Thank you.
Okay. That was, all right, next is 9 Meadow Way. That's 2023-29.
Hi there, good evening.
Good evening.
James Krapp from Studio Park, representing Lauren and Dan from 9 Meadow Way. So this has been previously brought to you in the fall, and it came forth with very minimal engineering to start with. So we resubmitted again in the winter, and it was not heard, but it was reviewed by Doug and Ed, and we met offline. So it hasn't really received distinct board review live within the meeting. So I'd like to take the opportunity to address the open comments that remain and just kind of present the project as well.
Well, why don't we go into what may be the deal breaker, and that's the floodplain. Are you now not taking anything out of the floodplain?
I believe there's still an open question regarding the flood storage capacity that I need to clarify with Doug in detail. But presently we're out of the floodway and we're providing no habitable space within the floodway. Storage capacity has been offset by engineering. There is a question about regrading that came up, and we're suggesting a minimal addition of 1 to 3 inches on the south to modestly mitigate any flood storage issues. But there were questions that are still outstanding right now in the present review. But we haven't had a chance to review them in detail since we received them yesterday.
There's not going to be any decisions tonight.
I wasn't
until the flood
expecting any.
conditions are put to bed, because Department of Environmental Conservation reviews floodplains, and we need to protect the interests of the village to make sure that we're not afoul of the DEC's floodplain requirements. And from what your own words, it's not resolved yet. At least
Not
that's
fully,
what
but that is correct. We are working with Doug and Ed to resolve them.
Why don't you go through it briefly?
Sure, I'll share my screen. So this is 9 Meadow Way. Here are, hasn't loaded up yet. So presently it's a split level. The majority of the property is already elevated. There's an existing rec room and garage on the first or on the grade level. Everything else is elevated above the floodplain. What we're proposing is removing the garage and creating a new garage and uninhabitable space to the north, and then moving the proposed driveway to the north side as well. And then we are also proposing an addition off the rear in the presently existing, you can see it here. There's presently a raised patio, stairs that are being removed, additional hardscape that is being removed, additional patios being removed to mitigate coverage and also mitigate flood storage. And what that leads to is you can see the existing plans here. So existing garage is being opened up. Existing rec room and storage space is being maintained. The second floor kitchen and porch area is being expanded. Just exterior proposed demolition. And then new garage is being added to the north. Uninhabitable storage is being added in the previous garage. It was brought to our attention that proposed expanded shower creeps into that space. That'll be removed in the next iteration. And then everything else is on the second floor or split level in this case, 2 varying levels in the kitchen area and the new guest suite or primary suite. What that leads to is essentially an addition to the north that will have flood panels and flood mitigation to allow no stopping of the floodway on the northern portion. The addition out of the rear, which you see over here, is over all of the existing coverage and already pre-elevated. So that doesn't really change anything in the floodway. I believe there's a bit of a question about a small portion here that needs to be clarified, which I'd have to review in more detail. And then essentially say that again?
Come and see me on that, John Vance.
Sure.
He has to see you anyway to get the issues.
Yeah, that's what I did.
The total,
No.
what,
Yeah, no, 15 minutes, we can work out these issues.
No worries. Yeah, I just wanted to have the board see what's proposed, and then once we clarify it, have some comments, because I hope to advance this to some degree. And
you
then
mentioned excavation.
the only excavation that's proposed is for frost wall foundation related to this area, but there's no underground proposed at all.
I thought you were excavating to replace floodplain square footage that might be.
We're gonna work on that.
Oh, no, sorry, if I said excavate, I meant regrading. That was inappropriate word.
Okay, regrading.
Yeah.
Now, if what we saw in the regrading, I have two thoughts. In the southeast corner, there's trees, so any regrading around the roots of those trees is questionable. And if you
Yeah,
do
and
regrade on the south side, that's where your drainage disposal system is, and we don't want to create a bird bath on the south side that's going to impact the efficiency of the proposed stormwater.
Agreed.
Your property tends to pond. I mean, every time it rains to the north, there's a big pond of water. And if you regrade and lower the grade on the south side, is there going to be a pond there, a bird bath impacting and that's things you're going to have to clear up with Doug.
Sure, and the hope is, since there is presently zero stormwater management of any kind, in fact, there's 2 gutters that daylight to nothing. And now we're compensating for everything across the board. It couldn't be worse.
There is a bit of a drainage problem, like I said. The two times I was up there after a rain, there's a big pond to the north. Your whole north side of your house is a pond. So there are drainage issues on this property, and I don't want to transfer them to the south by regrading.
No, and just to clarify what you can see on the screen now, on the left-hand side here is the present grade. So 241 is what's around the house, and that's the existing grade. 240 is the green. What we're essentially proposing, and we don't have any real desire to regrade. What we're essentially doing is adding potentially 3 inches of earth on this side, just to mitigate any sort of storm capacity. So, and that is 1 to 3 inches over like 15 linear feet. It's very, very minimal. So I don't want anyone to think we're like putting up berms or anything like that, or trying to do anything
Well, I'm
beyond.
sure our
add some spot elevations over there too, so we could check it.
Sure.
say that again,
That's-
Doug.
Add some spot elevations, because it looks like it's more than that to me, so.
Got it. I clarified with engineering today just to make sure that I was not misreading what they proposed to mitigate it. And we're also looking at the couple areas in question that look like they might be taking away from capacity. I also have opportunities to add flood panels or potentially cantilever at those locations too, to eliminate that. But I need to crunch the numbers to make sure that that's happening. So.
Yeah, and the trees I was talking about is in that southeast corner.
Right here.
Yes.
Yeah, and 1 to 3 inches, everything would be hand dug. We don't want to hurt trees either. So.
Anything more than 3 inches of fill on top of roots is detrimental.
Understood, which is why we're doing minimal. So.
All right, does anybody have any, I'm sorry, you finished?
Plus or minus, yeah.
Keep in mind that, the current garage is part of the floodplain.
Correct.
And you need to, I don't know if is taking the current garage out of the floodplain?
No, he needs to do a little bit more work. He has the intent of it. It just didn't demonstrate it well.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
and just
15
to, sure, we
before
can.
it'd be-
So we can either, and per your comments, we can either add additional flood panels or increase the existing. Presently, there's 700 square feet plus or minus. We have flood panels set up for 600 square feet, 600 square inches. So they could either get a little bigger, or we can punch them into the other area as well. So I think we can work through it.
For purposes of everyone understanding, I know what a flood panel is, but could you say what a flood panel is?
I was going to ask.
It's essentially a breakaway gate or a louver that allows water, should it get to a certain level, to break through the building and not impact flow or capacity. So essentially what we're doing is we're saying the garage and the storage area, which are uninhabitable, are not impacting the floodway. So should there be a surge of some kind, we're allowing the water to flow freely and not cause any issues. So those flood panels are essentially, it's different elevation. Essentially, it's a breakaway louver on the north and on the rear of the new addition. The previous garage is under this previous portion. And as I said, right now it doesn't have panels, but it could either be open to this to include these panels or have additional panels be put into it. So we can clarify that.
Now, when the panel is not opening to allow floodwater through, how does it work to keep?
Well, so you could have it louvered so that water can flow, but it can keep things out. You don't have to necessarily impede. This is essentially unconditioned, uninhabitable space, so it doesn't have to be weather tight. So we would essentially insulate everything above and on the inside, so that that's our envelope.
You certainly don't want rodents.
Of course.
Okay, we'll let the village building inspector and engineer work with you and come up with a solution. Hopefully come up with a solution so the homeowner can get what he desires and not harm the floodplain. I have a note here for permits for water course and wetland. Do we got them, or?
We're gonna wait till all it works out and then we will add it to the.
Just to be aware, you need to make application for permits for
Well,
water.
they did submit them.
Oh, they did submit them? All right.
Yes.
Okay, we just didn't work on them yet.
The original submission did not have it. The second review that wasn't brought to the board was included and reviewed, but not heard by the board.
Okay. Any questions after that discussion?
No, no question.
Dan?
I have no further.
Mike Smith?
No questions?
Mike B?
No questions.
Sarah, anything in the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there were no comments in the chat.
Okay, thank you. I hope you set up something with Ed and Doug and work out the details.
I will reach out whenever they're
Sounds like
available.
on the right track, you might be able to get there, and I hope so.
Hopefully we'll
Okay,
figure it out. Thank you.
All right, the next is 39 Fargo. It's 2024-06.
Hello, John Malone, Ferguson Malone Architecture, representing the Sanchez family. This is a project for a new house on an existing lot on Fargo Lane.
John, before you go on, there was a letter from a shareholder, from a homeowner up above the hill. I believe they're here tonight. Did you get a copy of that letter?
We did. We got it yesterday.
While you're talking, try to take into account some of the comments from the letter.
Okay. Typically I thought I would start going through the design and what was driving it, and then after that we could go through impacts if you want to. Does that sound right, Susan? Yeah. Okay, so this is a project for a site on Fargo Lane that has an existing 1.5-story building on it. The proposed project is to take that building down and to replace it with a new.
Document plan up, please.
Oh, yeah, let me bring it up.
Sorry, Susan.
The board is I believe all the board is familiar with this site because we did a project for this site that did not move forward about 18 months ago, I believe. So the location of the proposed building is in a similar location based on concerns for stormwater and view impacts. We determined last time that the best location for the building was to move it back away from the street. As you move it closer to the street, there are more view impacts for the rear yard neighbors. And there are also more, impacts for the neighborhood in general in terms of having the building too far forward. The existing building is too far forward relative to other buildings on other houses on the street right now. So the goal is to move that building back, but not to move it back so far that it starts to extend up the hill. So some of the criteria for this client and this new building is that they're interested in a modern building and a building that was very much connected with the outside. So they're looking for a building that relies almost entirely on natural light during the day and takes advantages of views, long views potentially to the river from the second story, but also views of the site. Also, as part of the building, they were looking for outdoor space that acted like outdoor rooms that were related to certain functions in the building. So related to the kitchen and related to the main living area, they wanted outdoor space that was directly adjacent to that and sort of maximize sort of indoor-outdoor feel for the project. In our analysis, the last round and also with this round, vehicular access and garage on this project is a little difficult. So the goal for something like this for the impact on the street would be to have the garage be not the main thing that you see, not the initial presentation of the building, the garage. So we look for ways to kind of suppress the garage and move the garage further back into the plan. Options to put the garage in the back of the site don't really work because it tends to move the building up the hill and it tends to pave some of the area that is some of the best area of the lot. So what we've done here is the garage is still facing forward in the building, but it's under a large overhang, which sort of brings that mass back and makes it secondary to the overhang on the second floor. There are portions of the program. The project program is basically a 4-bedroom. It's a primary bedroom, 2 children's bedrooms, and then an office that can also act as another bedroom. And then on the ground, those are all on the second floor. And then on the ground floor, the program includes a living space. If I can go there quickly. A living space, a living area, a dining area, and a kitchen and an entry space. So the adjacencies between the garage and the kitchen dining were sort of crucial, and the open living space. The living space, they wanted to have Western light and Western views as well as Eastern views for morning light, and they wanted privacy to the neighbor that's closest to them on the south side. And so you'll see that the building is made up of relatively narrow wings to try to maximize the natural light moving into the space. The other thing to note is whatever program, the initial program had a family room included with it, a TV space that was intended to be on the ground floor. We have adjusted that to put it into the lower level. So the lower level of the project has a family room in it. And the natural light is being through like a well. So it's below grade, but we're still trying to maximize the southern light into that well to try to move that mass of that function below grade to try to limit the impact. Also, the last project that we brought to you had a lot of challenges with stormwater along the rear yard of the project, specifically the site water that is coming down from the properties, basically the eastern side of the property, and also the off-site water, which is moving down the hillside, this water here. So in this project, we look to have functions that could be partially underground in that rear section. So if you see here, this kitchen elevation has windows that are only to counter height so that the grade behind the kitchen can be higher, and this portion of the building can be partially buried because it's not a part of the building where we're doing the full height windows, full modern windows into a garden space. So that's part of the structure of this, was putting the kitchen into, because it's one of those uses that didn't need full height windows in that area. and the garage also is that way. So then in terms of where we ended up, this is the presentation towards the front, towards the street. Again, you see the garage is trying to be set back to limit its impact, and that's what the overhang, where hopefully the overhang will do. As you move around the building, this is the rear where you see the grade is higher over here, partially burying the kitchen area, and where this guy in the hoodie is standing underneath there is the well to the lower level that is, you know, allowing us to push the mass of that family room down into the ground. We continue around, you see the basically the strategy for the project. Right. So in terms of visual impact, we did put together a visual impact analysis for the project as required. And our visual impact used assumed that the neighbors to the east would still be the primary concern. So we used the images that were provided by those neighbors in the last project. Here you can see, you know, basically the grade through here and how we, you know, sort of kept the house in the same place as previously. And what we provided for analysis was image with vegetation in place and image with vegetation not in place. So the first point is from 19 Meadowbrook, which is one we've seen before, and the light blue line indicates the recently approved project, and the orange line shows the proposed project. So you'll see in terms of impacts in this area, the difference between the recently approved impacts and the proposed impacts are here. So there's slightly more impact here associated with the chimney, but you know, we think that's a de minimis change. And then there's a slight benefit here where the roof height is dropped in this area here. And we've done this for each of the projects. So you see again in light blue, you see the previously approved project. And here you see the slight reduction of the roof line. That has a slight benefit to these projects, but it's basically a similar impact. And then again, this is the 15 Meadowbrook shot, where you see there's a slight improvement here by the reduction of the roof line. But as a starting point for the visual impact, we try to keep the impacts in line with the previous impacts. I think we did have some time, Caesar, to review the letter from the neighbor at 19, and they're concerned about the impacts being similar to what was recently proposed and are asking why those impacts can't be better. I think there's a few things that they mentioned in that letter. Some of them are redesigns, you know, full redesigns in terms of moving the mass of the buildings around. Those as feasible options, I'm not sure I can discuss them at great depth today because it's hard for us to determine whether something like that is feasible, because the design we have right now is very specific and has specific requirements. And I think those options that they proposed are simply about moving mass away from their view. And we don't know if they work. So I think I do have a copy of that letter here. If you want to jump to that, do you want to stop here, Caesar, and talk about anything, or do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, let's stop here for a
Okay.
second. Let's do some easy stuff first. The new proposal has a lot of trees being cut down.
It does.
You'll see. And we don't know why. Specifically 20 and 24 in the east side. They're perfectly healthy trees, and just you need to tell us why you're cutting down the trees and what is the tree replacement plan.
So the tree, just for people's understanding, tree 25 is a small
24.
Which is 24?
Further up to the east.
Oh, that tree's dead. Okay. That's only shown being removed because the tree is already dead.
Well, you better discuss that with Suzanne.
Okay, and then tree 25 here, which was the other one on Suzanne's note, is a small hemlock evergreen that is just sort of out of place. So we were hoping to, replace
It
it
was
with
tree,
something.
tree 20 also.
Tree 20. Just see if I can
Those
find
were
it.
the specifics, but the
Right.
generic question.
Right, so I think almost all of those trees are in fair to poor condition, so I think that was why they were targeted. But also, I think the goal, just the larger goal is to have this area be more open, and we're adding a lot of planting around the perimeter. You can see all of this hatched is new planting, and the larger hatched are new native trees that are being added. So the trees that are being removed, these are all remaining in this area here. But the trees that are being removed, I'm sorry.
You're going to have to resolve Suzanne's issues with Suzanne.
Okay,
You know,
sounds good.
as she expressed some concern with what you got. And she didn't think 24 was dead, so maybe she missed something.
I don't know if we have it properly. Maybe we don't have it properly indicated on the schedule. We'll work that out.
It's in the right location in that far northeast corner.
Right.
The next really big issue is not the view preservation. It's, could you come up with a location for the utility pole, the interim location and the final location? So we don't have to
We will
bring it up.
We will take care of that. The goal in this project is to work with the utility pole that's on the street and bring a sweep down at that pole. So we'll work that out exactly. We're going to see if we can find a way to bring a sweep down from the pole and not have any freestanding box.
No utility boxes in the setback,
Right.
whether it's the side or front,
Right.
because otherwise it gets to be a problem at the end of the project, as you know.
Right. Got it.
All right, in terms of, so the ridge line is about eight inches lower than the previously approved structure.
I believe so. Yeah.
All right, what are the ceiling heights in the building now?
So the proposed ceiling height has a 10-foot ceiling on the lower level and a 9-foot ceiling on the second level.
Okay, there's two things that we like to see. The ceiling level looked at, do you really need 10 feet? And our engineer feels that you could drop the whole house a foot and still have an architecturally, the grading would not be impacted that much because you have some space in the front too. The front could still be above grade by just removing some soil. And, the back could be regraded. And that should be discussed with Doug and
Okay.
Ed.
I think, yeah, we can discuss that with him. I think as part of the last submission, we pushed it down to a level, the floor level down to a level that our civil engineer would not agree with. In fact, they wrote us letters that we thought we pushed it too low. But I think a foot may be doable. It may be doable. I understand.
We want to make sure that if it's doable to do it.
Right.
And
Okay.
our initial evaluation is that it is doable unless you come up with a reason that it's not.
Okay.
And it has to be more than we don't want to do it. And the ceiling heights should be looked at in terms of the 10-foot ceiling. I thought 8 feet were high, but okay. Also, in terms, it's hard to, I don't know if you probably could do it because those software for the renderings are fairly efficient. Rather than the pencil lines, if we could see profiles or silhouettes of the whole structure
Okay.
and have them side by side. What was previously approved, what you currently are proposing, and assuming you work out the ceiling and the depth of lowering the house, what could be with those a ceiling and elevation change, so that we can see the silhouettes, a whole silhouette, instead of trying to imagine filling in the pencil lines.
Right, we can do that.
You understand what I mean, correct?
Yeah, I think we can do that as both a white box and we can do it fully rendered like this too.
And the
so
screen's
yeah.
big enough that you could, that's three, you can put them side by side. So
Right.
that you could see in an incident, what the profiles actually look like,
Right,
the silhouette, the full
Okay.
silhouette. From
sounds good.
each of the, so that's 9 silhouettes, 3 at each location of the 3
So,
houses.
so what we could do to just go to this quickly would be to, so in a situation like this, Caesar, we could
It would-
show the orange line could be rendered, you know, could be the
Yeah.
actual proposed, and we could leave the light blue line to show the previously approved, and then we could do the inverse, where you can see the previously approved. with proposed.
Not on the same page, John.
Oh, yeah,
Otherwise,
not on the
there's
same page, two different images, right?
Each of those blue lines should be a separate page with a profile, a silhouette,
Okay, okay,
and we can see them side by side.
sounds good, okay.
Now, the other thing with the trees is, root protection of what's there, so you can deal with that.
I think on this, we're pretty good in terms of root impacts. And the stormwater proposed area, we talked to the civil yesterday, and we'll probably try to get it out of these root impacts here. Especially once we finalize the grading, if we do drop it a foot, we could see if we could still move it back and get it out of this. This is sort of one of the impacts that we could really control.
My last comment is, there is a pool and a patio, correct?
There's no swimming pool. There's just a pergola in this location.
No pool?
No pool.
You're not gonna come back next 6 months from now and ask for a pool?
Well, if you look at how it's arranged, there's no way to ever get equipment back there again. Yeah, no, they don't want to, we've gone through that in the original program. We discussed the pool and the client decided not to. I think it's a question of, whether they're really going to use it and whether they'll be in this house, in the summer, and is that the right approach for a pool, or should they go on vacation and swim somewhere else? So I think this is where they are.
You sure about that?
I am sure. Yeah.
Because as you know, that some other issues came up in other properties.
Yes.
And you're within the code for coverage and FAR?
We're below coverage and FAR, I think relatively significantly. Gonna look quickly. Oops. So in terms of FAR, in terms of coverage, our allowable is 4,800. So we're about 700 square feet below that. And then the allowable for FAR were almost 2,600 square feet below allowable FAR. So in terms of the volume of the building, we're relatively low.
Ed and Doug were in. Both nodded their head yes. Okay. Laura, you have any questions?
I'm glad Caesar asked about the pool because I was also kind of curious. I don't agree with Caesar about the ceiling heights. I think that 10 and 9 feet are actually reasonable for that style home. So I hope that maybe sinking, if it's possible to sink it a foot, that will help mitigate that a bit. And I want to state for the record that we spent many months on getting to an approval for this site for a different house and very carefully reviewing the view preservation. I really hope that we can use the precedents of what we approved the last time and have this be a quicker decision once everybody has made their statements and you've come back to us with the requested illustrations.
Dan?
Yeah, ideally, if you could sink it somewhat. And we'll see what happens with the windows, or with the height of the windows, so.
Mike Smith?
So my memory is that last time we, in order to reduce the height of the house, I think on the second floor, the ceiling heights were reduced to 9 feet, 6 inches. But that was in the context of getting it within. So I agree with you, Lori, if the ceiling heights can be maintained here and still impact the views minimally the way we had previously proved, then I'm okay with that. But I'm most interested, I'm not interested in reopening that discussion, but I am interested in knowing how the impact of this project compares to the impact of the one that we approved.
I think the presentation of the silhouettes on separate sheets, so we don't have to imagine what the pencil lines are. Anything else?
No.
Mike B?
Not much to add. I think I also would really want to just focus on the one part of the house that increases the block view. With the chimney area, or actually gets worse. That would probably be the area to focus on.
Okay.
I just want to say in response to that, if other areas improve though, you need to look at that as a whole case, right?
Sure, that's what I'm saying. We don't need to look at the ones, in my opinion, where they improve, just rationale for why some areas had to get worse. Would be the part that I'd like to discuss.
Okay, anything else based on what Michael, the two Mike said, Dan?
No.
Okay, I see we have a anxious audience who weathered the first couple of meetings. Is there anybody here from the public who might want to speak?
Say it in the mic.
Stephen Croup, 15 Meadowbrook Road.
Will you please say your name, please?
I did.
Oh, I didn't hear it, I'm sorry.
Stephen Croup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we obviously were presented last time as well, and you guys are somewhat doing the whole view preservation aspect of this, but we are in a view preservation zone. And if there is a way to have a lesser impact on the taking away of our views, I think that is something that you should consider. It seems obvious to me, as you said, that lowering the ceiling heights is a step in that direction. And I do think you should consider that seriously, not just discard that as an irrelevant idea. I think, what strikes me about the whole design of the house with, again, that in mind, is that the largest part of the house is on the top and the smallest part of the house on the bottom. And, just logically, if the smaller part of the house was on the top and the larger house on the bottom, it would go a long way to preserving and lessening the impact on our views. This is a huge second story that's overhanging. And I don't personally, if there's any effort to preserve our views, don't see that that's an effective way of preserving our views or having the least impact on our views. It's the converse. I mean, it's a design that's designed to take away more of our views. There is space on the ground in this lot that isn't utilized, that could be utilized in terms of square footage, rather than having a big bulky upper story that takes away our views. The other thing, so again, I would appeal to you not to simply say what before was good and we're going to just stick with that. This is a totally different style house and could be modified in a totally different way to have a lesser impact on our views. So I don't think that logic fits that I understand there was an arduous and difficult process for everybody, us included, not just you. And from our standpoint, unsatisfactory. But I don't want to go through that again either. But I do think it's entirely misguided just to say, okay, we did this before, it was okay. Now we have a new house that could be modified to improve the situation for us. I mean, we're 3 residents, longstanding residents who have been there. I actually am curious, I don't know if it's appropriate to ask, but someone mentioned that people might not even be in this house. Uh, is this house being built by a developer to be resold? And the reason I ask is to take away our rules for the profit of a developer to resell a house strikes me as even a worse situation in terms of what an effort should be made to avoid.
Mary Ann, that's not part of the review process, right?
No.
That was our attorney.
Yeah, but I want to throw that out because if the people building this house aren't even going to be living in this house.
We can answer this, Caesar, if you want.
Oh, we'll let him finish.
Yeah, no, I think it's a relevant point in terms of taking something away from three longstanding residents, perhaps for the profit of somebody. So again, I think that's, I've said what I think. Yeah.
I think at the beginning, you said you didn't want us to poo-poo the review. I think we spent 6 or 7 months on the review the last time around, so.
Different house, different style, entirely different situation.
It's not something that we took lightly.
No.
And, I'm sure it wasn't pleasant for the previous applicant. And if I remember, the house was twisted about 5 or 6 different ways, upside down, sideways. So it wasn't something we considered light, as Lori pointed out. John, do you have any explanation, any information on who's building and who's living there?
Yeah, so I'm not sure where people understood it as developer. It's not a developer. It's a family who is in the region who currently lives in Terrytown. This is their dream house that they plan to age in and bring their children back to. There was no intent of it being a developer house. And just in terms of, reference, developer houses typically aren't this expensive or specific. Because if they were made for profit, they wouldn't have complicated detailing like what's shown here. But it is not for a developer. It is for the end user.
Now that's from my personal experience, that's not unusual. When my brother and I and my father built my brother's house, my brother incorporated as a corporation, as a builder, and he intended to live there because it's different pricing when you go to the store.
Can I ask a question?
They're business owners. They're business owners, so I think it's probably just part of their financial planning and estate process. I'm not sure, but the fact that the ownership has an LLC at the end of it. But it is for a couple and it is for their private use, and they hope to live in it for 20 years, is what we've been told.
Lori
John
has a question.
Can you tell us the interior square footage on the ground floor versus the upstairs?
It is larger on the ground floor than on the upstairs, but let me pull up the analysis on that. Sorry. So you can see the garage number that's shown on the garage is 200 square feet approximately, but it's actually 600 square feet. There's a deduction in FAR. So the second level is about 2,300 square feet, and the second level is about 2,000, and the first floor is about 2,300 square feet.
Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of ceiling height, architecturally, when you're in a large room, you might feel like you're in a tunnel if the ceiling is too low. Like this is a relatively small room, but low ceiling gives you a cramped feeling. The bigger the room gets and the lower the ceiling, it gets claustrophobic.
Yeah, I think the proportion of this is what is driving it a lot. And you'll see that we've done in this area, in order to make this work, we have a lower ceiling in this area of the house and a larger ceiling in the larger rooms.
Yeah, so you have to take a look at that, the ratio between square footage and how much ceiling height you really need before you get into a claustrophobic situation. Is this overkill 10 feet or can you get away with 9 feet? And I do understand the logic of having a high ceiling in a large room. But then again, we don't need overkill either.
Right. Okay.
Anybody else? I'm sure there's more. Yeah.
Alex Hernandez, 19 Meadowbrook Road. Been here before with you guys. I approach the page number, so I want to stand about. Same letter, but with patients would obviously be follow along.
We'll take a look at this at the next meeting. Thanks. Thank you.
So this is the same letter.
See the extra one, because I keep a record thing.
The same letter that I submitted, it's just, it's page numbers down below. We're immediately located to the east of this property. As you know, if anything along those lines, you know, it's redundant, you know, you stop me.
Speaking rather low, and I want to make sure you're getting picked up in the mic.
Sorry. So we presently have reviews. If you turn to page 6, you can see the breadth of our river views from our family room, our kitchen and patio. As you go left to right across the top, bottom left is the view from our second floor bedroom, and from the right, on the bottom right, is the view from right outside of our family room in the backyard. The last application was for a very different home. It was actually 50% bigger. I think that if this was the application that was before the board at that time, it would have been a very different outcome. There's a lot of latitude within this application to do things to alleviate the issues, the obstruction of view for the neighbors. And they are separate applications. The other application was never acted upon. Right? There was never a building permit pulled. There was never a C of O. It's expired. So we went and, you know, just to highlight for a second, 2 particular stats that I think are very, you know, kind of powerful as it relates to the prior submission. The prior submission was 91% of the permitted FAR and 99.7% of the permitted coverage on the site. I understand that those are both permitted, but then when you couple them with a classic design and situate it at the narrowest location in the site, you're creating a condition that's very difficult to work with, which is where we found ourselves last time. This is a very different building. It is a modern building and of a architectural language that permits itself to play with volume. It's not atypical for a modern house to have disjointed volumes, portions forward from the front wall. If you look at 14 Fargo, which is just up the street, you'll find that the garage is actually 29 feet, excuse me, forward of the primary mass. So it's not, and it looks normal. You know, it's not something that looks atypical because it is a modern home. Secondly, we'd like you to, you know, I think you see in that visual impact analysis on our home that this is actually worse because it is encroaching upon what we've identified here as our primary view, right? Yes, we have, you know, the view that expands, but the most important impact we've highlighted in those green boxes, and that is what is, we believe, to be the most valuable view to our home. And so in kind of, you know, looking at that, we said, so, and we provided, you know, renderings of what these views, of what this as proposed is going to do to our view from, I think, 2 perspectives, the family room and the kitchen, and it's very significant. We actually, you know, just maybe we should jump to 7 and 8. Just to look at that. So if you look at the existing view on the left, sorry, that's from the family room. On the right, you have the superimposed mass of this structure. And you can see, you know, the chimney actually encroaching even further into the palisades. Secondly, the following page, you see the same as proposed and layered over our view from our kitchen and patio. It's the same view. So it just gives you a good feel for that. So what we did, and I just one point of information, I believe last time the prior submission, the approved first floor was 9'4" and 8'6" in the center mass and 8 feet in the bedrooms for the ceiling heights. And that was a classic home. So just highlighting that based on what I had in my notes. So then we worked with an architect based here in Irvington to come up with two alternatives of modifying the mass of this home, because there is a lot of coverage to play with. There is the ability to do that and mitigate impact. The first scenario was to actually take the portion that is obstructing our view and, well, let me take a step back. Maybe it makes sense to go to the site plans, which are page 10. Page 10. And start with the as proposed, just to, and I know you just saw it here, but the front, page 9, thank you. So the as proposed, which is basically a portion, has the 2-story portion fronting the river and the 1-story portion in the back. Alternate 1 basically takes the garage similar to 14 Fargo and slides it forward, and then leaves, there's then a big space behind that mass that you can relocate the southern mass behind, right? So you've now moved that out of my view, and we'll get in a second to what it does to my neighbors, but you know, it was something that was important to me to mitigate that and make sure that I understood that. That's one scenario. The second scenario is to take the second floor mass off the southern wing here in alternative 2 and relocate that and basically swap the program so that the master bedroom is sitting on what is presently programmed as the roof deck. And the roof deck comes over to what was the master bedroom. And then you slide, you could do it with or without a slide. Slide the southern mass slightly back. We actually had to do that because I think the corner of the building is in the setback on the north side as programmed. So I think we had to move it to actually stay within the side yard setback. And in so doing, I think the master bedroom actually maintains a view even after being relocated to the back of the river, because it's over the roof deck. Come back here. Few rambling points here. And then, you know, lastly, we wanted to take a, you know, consider all of these elements and what they were going to do to our neighbors' views, right? Because we're obviously moving things around and reconfiguring. And so we had the architect snap camera views, which are on page towards the back. 11 and 12. So sorry, 12. So 12 is the as proposed alternative 1 of relocating the bulk of the mass to the north. And alternative 2 is relocating the second floor mass behind, you're swapping it with the master bedroom. And the as proposed alternative 1, alternative 2 presented here is for 17 Meadowbrook Road. And as you look, you know, obviously the right corner of the building isn't really moving. It's at the setback. And the elevation isn't really changing. So if you follow along the far shore of the river, which is the top green line in each of these scenarios, it's not obstructing the view any further. And this is 17, and then the following page is for 15 in each of the same 3 scenarios. And similarly, it's not altering the view for my neighbors. See if there's anything else. And then lastly, we analyzed the scenario where we do the same thing with a northern mass rather than a southern mass. So instead of peeling it out of 19 Meadowbrook's view, we said, okay, let's take a mass from the northern component of the building on the second floor and relocate that, swap that with the roof deck. I don't know if that makes sense, but it does in, so, and when you look at page 11, you see the component of view that is freed up by doing that is actually not particularly impactful. Because we did want to try to balance this when we were analyzing it. So I think, with that, I think that's the vast majority of the points. And then I kind of enumerated what I thought we would like you to do as it relates to the review of this proposal. And again, I thank you for your consideration, and it was a fun process last time. But, I'm sorry if there's fatigue, but we're all still here. We're willing to engage in it and try to figure it out as best we can for everybody.
Okay, thank you. Okay, very detailed, anybody else? No?
My neighbors spoke very well for me.
Can I respond?
Well, no one else is going to speak? Okay, any comment from the board?
Yeah, I thank you.
I have one more comment. Alex was very specific. I don't know if,
Just to announce yourself again for the
oh,
transcriber.
sorry, Stephen Krupp.
Yeah, identify yourself again
I have a sense of-
Oh, 15 Meadowbrook Road.
and name.
You did.
So you're about 10 feet away when you said your name.
Sorry, Stephen Krupp, 15 Meadowbrook Road. Just because Alex was that specific, I wonder if Mr. Malone could show the 15 Meadowbrook diagram that he overlaid the blue and orange lines on.
I can. If Caesar, if you want me to, I can.
Well, you're gonna do this, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to point out that there is a negative impact by the current proposal compared
All
to
of them have.
the one that you approved.
Well,
Forgive me, I'll just point it out.
you're talking off the mic.
I'll have to show you.
Pull it out of this.
The mic
Take the
comes
mic
out
with you.
the
The mic
stand.
is portable.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, Michael Trump.
Sing a song.
The previously approved blue line slopes down here such that the very small sliver of river view that was left to us with that proposal with the proposed orange line is now taken away. So you may not be sympathetic to that, but it is an adverse impact on us. There was very little left for us. In addition to the trees as well that are taken away, but it isn't an equivalent situation.
You have to recall this. We have to weigh the three properties, not just one property over another. So. And we have to look at that, and it'll be a lot easier to look at when John presents the silhouettes, rather than trying to visualize with all those lines, the stick lines. And also looking at lowering the house and looking at the potential architectural roof ceilings to see how much large room, large ceiling. Where is that ratio? I'm not an architect, but I know it makes a difference. If you have a large room, you need a lot of ceiling. I don't know what the ratio is, but I'm sure there is some guidance for architects on how to do that. Plus, it's the View Preservation Code says to limit it. I'll paraphrase. I don't have a copy in front of me, but essentially it says to limit as best as possible. There's limiting your obstruction and also accommodating as best as possible what the applicant wants, and without impacting, trying to limit the impact on the views of the existing. So we have to take a look at that And I don't know, that was a very detailed presentation. John, take a look at that. Moving things around, maybe an architectural nightmare, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to follow a verbal presentation right off the top of my head. But I'm sure you'll take a look at it.
Okay.
We'll move on. Dan?
No, I'll look at 14 Fargo, you mentioned,
The second house on the right when you turn.
yes, yeah, I'll take a look at that versus the modern house they propose.
Oh,
Yeah, and I should comment that one of my new houses, it bothers me to see the garage as the main feature of a new house. That does, the focal point of a new house shouldn't be a 3-car garage. And unfortunately, that's my personal feeling. And every time I drive around, I say, well, it's a nice house, except for the garage. Well, sometimes the garages are put on the side, so you don't see them at all. Anyway, so that's just, everybody has a different view of how that works. Mike Smith?
Yeah, so Mr. Hernandez, you're also free to, and I would encourage you to give us how what we previously approved compares to what you've given us on the attachments to your letter. So for example, if you looked at page 7 and you have blocked out the as proposed and alternative 1 and alternative 2, if we could see how what we previously approved compares to those, that would be helpful to us.
I have no response.
Speak up, please.
State your name.
Address.
Alex Hernandez, 19 Meadowbrook Road. I assumed it was a separate application. So I was, as much as it was one of the things that I disagreed with about John submitting the lines, is that it is a separate application.
It may be a separate application. Yeah. But we, having spent as much time as we did making certain judgment calls as to what we would live with as an impact, we'd like to see how what we previously proved as an impact compares to whatever is here. And it may be that it absolutely proves your point.
Yep.
So just as we're asking John to give it to us, you're free to give
Sure.
us that as well.
Understand.
And I know my personal view, I'd love to see that.
Can I say something else or no?
Go right ahead. You got the mic.
So I just want to again point out that project didn't go forward. It wasn't actually feasible. So I think that the standard of creating a permitted view obstruction to the neighbors.
If that contract had been sold with approved,
was
that owner
approved.
had sold that land with the approval.
Yep.
They could have built, the next buyer could have built
Yeah.
just that.
I know, but it's not actually, it wasn't actually feasible. Or else they would have built it.
But it was
Who's
approved.
to say it wasn't feasible?
I mean, I know why it didn't go forward. But that doesn't mean that the next person couldn't have bought it with the approved
Okay.
plan. So I
Understood.
don't know that that's really the ground you want to plow, right?
Thank you. Mike, Pete?
Yeah, I know that was mentioned, the placement of the proposed house within the lot and it kind of taking up the whole space. I just wanted to confirm with John, to get it on the record, if the house is in any side yard setbacks.
No, we don't believe so. There's a bit of overhang that is, but I think the overhang is allowed to be in the side yard. If it's under 2 feet.
Under 2 feet.
Okay, Ed, the building inspector, because the overhang is under 2 feet, it's permitted in the side yard.
I just also want to say, I don't want anyone to get the idea that we don't want to go through this again. It's about abiding by the decisions that we already made as a board. We don't probably feel the need to remake the same exact decision in some ways, and that's my opinion. It's not about not wanting to go through it, it's about having already set a precedent on this exact situation.
Can I comment? One more comment?
Go right ahead.
I hear what you're saying, but
That's how you didn't say your name.
Stephen Crooks, 15 Meadowbrook Road. I hear what you're saying, but you did that because there was a house design that didn't allow the flexibility. And you made your best judgment. based on that design. This is an entirely different design that allows for entirely different flexibility. So I think I can disagree with you, you can disagree with me, but I think it's inappropriate.
Therefore, what we're asking for will show that this design.
No, but I'm addressing.
I think you're making an assumption.
I'm making an assumption. At the beginning of the meeting, you more or less said, we're not going to do it again. So that's what I was responding to. And maybe I misunderstood you, forgive me. Yeah.
What we're not gonna do is sit here 7 different meetings. We have a lot of experience to draw from those.
Yeah.
I forget, 7 or 8 meetings that we had, flipping everything every which way. So I think only Mike was not on the board. Are you on the board then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were on it, yeah.
Yeah, I was actually on the button for both of them.
Yeah, both of us.
So it's the experience of this board. It's not like we're all sitting here for the first time.
I mean, also, I just want approval set precedents, and that is actually what we deal with every month, right? That we talk about if we approve it this time, it does end up setting a precedence for the next time. And I appreciate, John, that you're keeping where you're taking a house down, you're putting up a new one that fits in the envelope properly, and you're not going to need variances. I appreciate, Mr. Hernandez, all of your submittal, and I respectfully request that John really take a hard look at it and give us some answers, because he's the project architect working with the client, and he's best to answer if any of your suggestions are at all feasible.
I think if you could give me just 1 minute on that, because of what Lori's comment was,
Let me do a little housekeeping first.
Okay, sorry.
Sarah, any public on Zoom that wants to comment?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay, John, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that I think, and I'm sure the board understands this, but I just wanted to go on the record. In order to really check if an alternate design is feasible, there's a tremendous amount of work associated with that. So the work that you've seen to date on this project, I don't want you to underestimate what that would be, and to truly test if another option where you move the second floor to one side or other, it's, we can't sort of say that any of the things that Mr. Hernandez has shown are feasible at this point. It would take a tremendous amount of time for us to do that. But on the other side, what we can do is look closely at what's designed now, look closely at what he proposed, and see, what extent we can address his concerns. That we can do.
I appreciate it. You did the latter.
Yeah.
Okay. We appreciate it if you do what you said you can do.
Yes, that's what I'll do.
Anything else to add, John?
No, I'm good.
Anybody on the board want to add anything that hasn't been already asked of them?
Yeah.
Anybody in the room want to add anything before we? Okay, thanks a lot, John. We'll see you next time. And don't forget to locate the utility pole.
Yes, I'll circle that right now. Thank you.
If you ever drive down Fargo Lane, you'll see the utility pole at 90 Fargo. We don't want that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, man.
Right. Good night now. As we said, 12 Main is not being heard. And as we said, 8 Leafwood Terrace is not being heard. So we're moving on to 61 Field Terrace.
Good evening again, folks. My name is Mike Jacobs. I'm here with Jacobs Chang Architecture this evening on behalf of the owners at 61 Field Terrace. And I'm here to present a planning application for some work on the exterior of the property. I'm going to share a screen if that's okay.
Just gonna say, share the screen.
Yeah. So we were asked to assist the owners about a year, maybe almost 2 years ago now, with some renovations, interior renovations to their home, help them reconfigure some of the spaces that made it maybe a little bit more livable for the family. And in the process of doing that, replace some of the windows and the insulation in the house. And that work required the review from the Architectural Review Board and, of course, Building and Safety. And we got those approvals, and we're underway with construction. And in the course of construction on that interior work, there's been some requests from the owners to make some changes to the exterior grounds of the property. And so tonight I'd like to just share some of what that is, and just bring you quickly through the context of where we arrived at for this. So 61 Field Terrace, roughly in the middle of this frame. You can see it's sort of surrounded by homes. It's in a very residential neighborhood. And this property, as is with many of the properties in this area, have historically been part of a larger piece of property, an estate property that has systematically been sort of subdivided and developed over the years. As we look at the tax maps, just for context, 61 Field is roughly 1 acre. The house is sitting on a property that is, I think, very contextual. So I don't know the exact square footages, but the properties that surround it are roughly the same size. Some in the neighborhood, roughly about 1 acre. You can see some that are somewhat smaller, of course, and some that are quite a bit larger. And I think of note, the house, which is this kind of the object form here, is a house that was built in 1971. It's a 1-story structure. There was an addition put on the house in the mid-'80s, which is off to the east of the house, which is on this side. That's a 2-story addition, and that was a prime bedroom on the upstairs over a 2-car garage. And then in the mid-'90s, an addition was made to the north side of that garage to extend the 2-car garage to become a 4-car garage with tandem parking with a roof deck above. That's the basic history of the building. Here we go. Sorry, just working on the slides. There we go. And again, just to give you context, this is the earliest property survey we identified or we could find. This is from 1994 property survey. It predates probably by about a year or maybe 6 months the extension off of this back 2-story area that has now a roof deck on it, and when we took over the project, a garage extension below. And when we filed for our own building application, this property survey was done in 2021. And, you know, not that we'll have to go in, you can see that there's not a lot that has changed on the property in that time, other than maybe the play gym, which is sitting here, and some sort of stone curbs that sort of pepper the property. And so really there's been no significant changes to the property in the last 30-ish years. So visually contextual, this is the end of the shared driveway. The shared driveway accesses 3 properties. 61 Field is this property on the left. And then to the south, there's a 2-story kind of modern structure of wood. And then as we turn, that again is to the south of the house. And then at the Field Terrace driveway entry, which comes to the left of this image, we see a brick structure, a brick house that's roughly 2.5 stories. Again, one of the adjacent neighbors just to the west. And so in preparing for the planning board application, it certainly became clear to us that there is a complex set of criteria that result in an overall development coverage. And I think I felt it was important to frame what we're requesting in this application with maybe where we started, to just give it, in that sense, some context. So we're going to start with the driveway request. The application, I should just summarize the application that we're requesting consideration for, has what I would consider 4 basic components. Some work on the driveway to the west, driveway area to the west, a patio up to the north of the house in the kind of the level area of the upper lawn, a raised deck down at the eastern side, which is in the back of the house and low, and then some changes to the roof deck that were approved in our initial application, some modifications to that. So we'll start with the driveway. When we started working on this property, the driveway coverage, which is sort of outlined generally in this pink line, totaled about 6,500 square feet of asphalt. And in the application that we got approval for, these pink areas represent areas of that application where we would like to, or we got approval to remove the asphalt and return roughly just under 2,400 square feet of asphalt back to landscape. And that's happening in two places. One is in the turnaround for the driveway. So the driveway comes in, there's a carport, and that's part of the original house. And this is part of the original landscape design to come turn around this way. We would like to remove that turnaround and instead put in like a 20 by 18 parking space just to the outside of the carport. In addition to that, the driveway, when the garage was built in the 80s, the driveway extended down the property on the south side, turned into this kind of turnout space. And so there's this asphalt down here, and we were proposing to get rid of this asphalt, but actually leave this area here for recreational purposes and that sort of thing. And so the approval netted a landscape, or like a hardscape, a driveway area of asphalt that was roughly this blue space here. And of course, the now disconnected asphalt space down here. What we're asking for in this application is two things. One is for approval to remove this asphalt and return this to landscape. I think there's been some consideration about the way these spaces work, that it may not be ideal for recreation and play space. And to actually expand 16 additional feet to the west, some parking area for overflow parking. And I think it's important there's two things maybe that I'd like to kind of call out on this. One is that what we're asking for in this area has asphalt on it already, historic. We're not moving past what was originally asphalt. We're just sort of bringing it closer to that line. But I think what's important to also note is that this is a flag lot, and Field Terrace, the street where there's parking, it is a narrow street, but you can park on the street. It's a little bit more than 200 feet away from the house. And so when guests come, it can be a little bit onerous to park on the street and walk to the house. And so the idea of having some additional parking on the property feels important. And so the light blue area reflects roughly the approved driveway, and this darker blue area is what we're requesting to expand on that driveway. And the area for recreation that was down low now maybe can find its home in a more active part of the lot, so that we can return some of this back to a more natural ground. So how that might look, this is a view looking east from the front of the house, the front door, of course, in the middle. But you can see this is the area that's going to be taken away and returned to planting. The pink area reflects what is roughly approved, and the blue area may be the extended portion. As we look in the other direction, as we approach from the car sort of approach, the pink area is what was approved, and we're asking for this extended piece. You can see very faintly at the very edge here the existing driveway as it comes around. So really, we're not pushing past that line. There's no impact on trees or anything of that nature. And as we move down the driveway, the pink area is the area that we have approval to remove already and return to planting. And then this area down low is the area that we're requesting to also be removed. And as we move kind of in the other direction back up towards the carport, just another contextual image.
Yes.
And so what does this mean? I think it's important, again, to just, in the context, we know that the planning board and maybe the building department do not consider development coverage for the driveway. However, we think that, as part of our approach to the property in general, there's a significant reduction in the amount of paved area on this property, which, has been in place probably before the zoning codes were enacted. I think with our initial approval, we dropped that to almost 20 from 6,500 to roughly 2,400 square feet less. We're proposing an additional 564 square feet, which is to the west of the driveway, the parking driveway area. We're removing about 1,100 square feet where there used to be a turnout space, and there's a couple pathways that we're adding. That really nets a reduction, an overall reduction on the property of almost 3,000 square feet of paved area, so 2,800 plus square feet. So the second component is a patio space, a seating area to the north of the house with two pathways, one from the kind of kitchen dining zone and one from the living space. And these kind of extend out north to a flat area of property. There's no house in this area of the neighboring properties. It's just a lawn. And this proposed patio would be like pea gravel with stone pavers to kind of carry you out there. So everything at grade on the ground. And forgive the rough sketch, but roughly in this area of the house where you can see you have kind of nice expansive views to the east. What you can't see is a nice expansive views to the west and probably even views out towards the Palisades in the kind of diagonal direction. This is the original house that we're modifying, so this all comes away, thankfully. But there's very beautifully mature plantings around this area of the property that have been maintained and cultivated. And I think we think it's a really nice spot for gathering outside of the living space. The third component is the open slat wood decking off to the east of the house. This is down low, so as we're here, we kind of drop down. We saw the photos, and this is sort of on that east side of the house. And we're proposing this as an extension of some of that lower floor, which has historically been garage and now is being turned into living space. And one of the reasons so this is a rough outline of what that deck might sort of where it might be located. And we're raising it above the ground really because, as you can see here, the existing driveway, which kind of lines up here, kind of continues into the house, that floor level is staying the same. So it's roughly two to three sort of risers above ground over here. And we think that having this deck raised a couple feet above ground will give us a nice transition to the outside, a highly usable deck in a very private area of the property. And the last piece, again, is the roof deck over the old garage outside of the prime bedroom. We have an approval for removing the existing planters and replacing the railing and leaving the stone decking. What we don't have approval for and what we're asking for is a little bit of a change. We'd like to consider, again, maybe not a planning issue, but planted or vegetated roof with gravel ballast, and then a smaller area kind of tucked within that for kind of a private seating area off the prime bedroom, which might be like a little raised deck in an island of green. And then there's a connector stair from the ground that comes up to this deck, and we'd like to remove that. So what does that look like? So that's this stair that would come out, these planters, which would come out, and the railing. And this patio here, or this stone pavers would come out with that. And conceptually, this is a different climate, these projects, but seating area at grade, sitting in landscape, pavers in a pathway of gravel, a deck right off of the grade. So just a little raised deck off of grade, and the planted roof idea. So just to give you a sort of sense of what that is. I'm happy to also walk the board through the floor plans if you would like, or even the elevations, or I'm happy to stop and field questions.
Yeah, my only question is the parking area to the west.
Yeah.
Did you include that in your coverage calculations? Because parking area is not a driveway.
I think for this initial application, we did not, but I did get the notes from Mr. Hahn, and yes, we will be including that. So,
Yeah,
I understand that the nuance. Yep.
You're in this. It is in this front yard setback, correct? So
Correct.
You should put some in there. I don't know how. You said there's the brick house out on Field Terrace.
Yep.
Their backyard, that's your parking area. There's space for some screening there. You look at that.
Sure. Yeah, I think there would be. So the house is situated here. It faces south is the front door, and then the backyard is up here. Their driveway sits right about here off of the property line. And so there is room. This is 61 Field Terrace property line. There's an easement for access to the north property through here. So I don't know if planting could go in this zone, but certainly up to in this area, which is kind of the white area between the driveway and the property line. There's plenty of room for screening in there as well.
Yeah. And the patio,
Up here, this one.
I know it's gravel, that's covered, but in terms of screening, there's no house on the other side.
Correct.
I think the parking in the front yard setback is an issue. And I think his light blue in this drawing is incorrect according to his last application. He did have an application to remove some pavement. So when he references the last application, it's an interior alteration that showed removal of driveway only. So that's why you didn't see it. Okay. But the light blue between the light blue between the dark blue and the carport,
that's coverage.
That's coverage, and that's not there now, according to your application on your last submission.
So this portion here, we need to include in our proposed coverage.
Let's make sure it's accurate, because it's all coverage as a parking area.
Okay.
And more importantly, anything in the front yard setback will need a variance for parking area in the front yard setback.
Got it.
Yeah, speaking of that setback, you got the play gym is in the front yard setback.
Yeah, the play gym is currently nested in the trees up in here, which probably straddles the setback.
When was that installed?
I don't know. A couple years ago.
There was a change in the ordinance that play sets are not coverage. But the new ordinance says they can't be in the front yard setback. So if you want to use the old orders, depending on when it was built, you have to count the play area. Play area is potential coverage if it meets the criteria of square footage of coverage.
Okay. So I'll discuss with Mr. Marin maybe after this.
It's coverage. So the play set is coverage.
The play set is coverage.
Yes.
Like if you had chairs on the lawn, would that also be coverage, or does that not count?
Is that sarcastic?
Unproductive.
No, actually, it's actually no.
I thought that was sarcastic.
You put them on the site plan.
Sorry, no, it wasn't sarcastic. Sorry.
If you want it to be coverage, we can make it coverage.
No.
But the chairs you can carry.
Shows them on the plan, the coverage. If you want it his way, we'll give it to him.
Okay.
The play set is either incorrectly in the front yard setback or it's coverage. You got a choice.
Okay. If it finds its place on the property within the setback, side, front, wherever, is it still considered coverage?
We'll get back to it, but probably
It's not in the front, if it's not in the front yard,
Okay.
it's not covered.
Okay.
Oh, and the exhibit, if I'm not correct, your coverage is rather high to start with.
Yeah.
55. We'd like to see a neighborhood comparison chart.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that was one of my questions that I was hoping to do a skirt on, but I guess you guys would like to see, according to the engineer's report, existing and proposed lot conditions and neighborhood parcels. Is there a method for defining that? Like, how do we find that information? Is that just public information?
Doug can help you out on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
didn't you do it on the other application?
No, we just we weren't asked to, actually.
Okay. All right, I could send you an example.
Yeah, no, I've seen it in some of the other presentations. I just don't understand really where that information comes from.
Okay, we can go over it.
Okay.
From the photographs, I didn't see many trees, but our landscape architect would like whatever trees are around to show them on the plan.
We
And
will.
make sure-
Yeah, there's a couple substantial trees in the front yard. And of course, the whole back hillside has got trees.
Yeah,
So
if they're
yeah,
anywhere
we'll do our
near-
best.
If they're anywhere near disturbance, they need root protection for,
Okay.
okay?
There was a note in the comments, and maybe this is something we can talk about offline. There was a request for a landscaping plan, and I'm wondering, is that a requirement or?
I think what we're looking for is the trees to be shown
Got it. Okay.
with protection as needed.
Okay.
And the screen. And the screening of that parking area.
Of course.
You're not taking any trees down, right?
There's a tree on in the front yard, which is currently near where the play gym is. We were told it's diseased. There may be an application to remove one of those trees, but the idea would be to keep as many of the trees as possible in the front yard, other than the ones that are maybe imminently
You say
in
an
trouble.
application, you mean as part of this application or?
We didn't include it in this, but perhaps we need to. Yeah.
You don't need to if you're keeping it there. Okay, so show the trees and if they're near disturbance, you need to show root protection. And I don't think we need a landscape plan, they're just the trees for the interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, didn't you
I,
say?
I think if he's gonna keep the parking spaces, it would be a landscape plan.
He's also talking about having seating outside.
Okay, convince me, you need a landscape plan. You said yes, right?
I know, it's up to you to say.
I know,
I'm
but
just
you-
pointing out additional things.
Yeah.
I pointed out something, I pointed out that they're sitting outside.
That's not, it's not near the neighbor's house.
Not adjacent to the neighbor.
Just show the trees and the
Okay.
protection for the, and the screening.
Okay.
And make sure you show any lawn chairs.
Well, we do show them. They're just on the patio. So
Well, you could, possibly you might move them.
I know. It's true.
All right, any comments from the board? You?
I just had a couple of questions. So I just want to make sure I'm clear. There's no working garage for this house, right?
Correct. Yeah. The
Okay.
covered carport will remain intact. So that'll be the covered
Okay.
area. Yep.
All right, that's helpful. And then for the wood decking, is there any interior room that accesses that wood decking in the back, or is it just accessed through the outside?
Yeah. So one of the basement rooms, I can share the plan. See if I can find it. Am I still sharing the screen? I'm not quite.
Yeah,
sure.
we see with
Yeah,
the drive,
okay.
we see the overall.
Got it. Okay. Let me just jump down here. Yeah. So in the back of the house, down below, there is a room here, like an exercise room that can sort of slide right outside onto this space here. And this is a rec
Okay.
room that can also come out and kind of move out to the landscape this way.
Okay, thank you.
No questions.
Mike Smith,
I have no questions.
Mike Pete,
No questions.
Sarah,
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there were no comments in the chat.
okay, so I think Ed, it's best they meet with you at some time, clear up the coverage issues.
Give us a call.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
folks.
Next is 10 Grinnell Street, 2024-02. The last one.
If you're here to represent the application, if you could please hit the raise hand button. There.
That's not.
Good evening. My name is Frank Bueno, representing Little Louis Architectural Design. I'll be presenting for, on behalf of the owners, Ms. and Mr. Doherty for 10 Grinnell Street. Let me give me a second. Let me share my screen. So I'm trying to share the screen. I'll go through the project. Basically,
You're not.
We don't see your screen
Not
yet.
sharing yet.
the screen. Hitting the
There.
share button. Let's start sharing. Not sure what's going on. I'm having technical issue with sharing the screen. I'm hitting the share button, but it's not sharing.
Sarah?
And I'm hitting the, I want to share my desktop, which is, and I hit on share. It says open system preference. It's not allowing me to share.
Do you see the share button at the bottom of the
The
screen?
bottom of the screen, the green button that says share screen. I'm clicking on it.
Click that, and then you click on your document, and then you hit share, and you should be able to show it.
You gotta click on your document after you hit the share.
Yeah, it's not giving me, it's giving me several options, desktop, whiteboard, iPhone, not sure what's giving me all this. Never had this before.
What if you say,
Are you working on a laptop or a tablet?
Laptop.
Hang on a second,
Sarah, can we bring it up to some?
he's gonna work on it. You won't be able to see it though, will
Yeah,
Sarah's gonna bring it up for you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, that's awesome. So let me give you a
You don't need
history.
the site plan, Sarah.
One more. Oh, it's right there.
So
Yeah, that's close enough.
Okay, so let me give you a little history on the house. The house sits in the middle of the block. It has a shared driveway at the rear, and it's the last property on that shared driveway. Excuse me, driveway easement, sorry. What we filed is we're looking to do is to legalize, since the work has started, the concrete, the walkway, the paved walkway, the steps, and it's a paved area in front of the garage where we're looking to repave, fix the fence, which is deteriorating, and add this asphalt bump in order to deviate water from going directly into the garage, since it's at the lowest point of the driveway easement, and all the water that comes from the street that have been regraded or repaved a few times is higher than the point of the garage. So all the water from the street runs and goes through all the property and right onto the garage. That's pretty much it. It's a simple project. This is just
In the front by Grinnell Street, you come in and there's presently brick pavers there. You're gonna concrete that?
in the front part, which is
No. And you walk past the neighbor's garage, there's a little bit of concrete and then there's brick pavers before you go down the steps. Your current plan says concrete slab. Is the intention to replace the brick pavers with concrete?
yes, that is the idea. You're talking about in front of the property here, which says new concrete slab?
Yeah.
Yes, that is
that the intent?
essentially the idea.
Okay, then when you go down the steps, if you're standing on the steps and look to the north or to the right, there's a concrete slab. What's the intention of that?
We adding pavers here.
Now, there's an existing concrete slab there now that wasn't there before. That's new. It's already there.
All right, so where it says existing concrete deck, is this the area you're referring to?
Now, when you come off the street, you walk on the brick pavers, you go to the steps to go down, and if you
Right, the one,
stand on.
the wood
look
steps?
to the right, if you stand on the steps and look to the right, there's a concrete slab there, and that's new.
Right, so it's new concrete slab.
That's new. Wasn't there before, correct?
That is correct. This is new.
Okay. And the pavers that you put in, we have no idea how big the original walkway was. And it appears that the paved area is now bigger than what was there. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Now, being that the paved area is picking up, you're adding runoff. And that runoff can only go downhill because that's the way things work.
Correct.
And putting in a bump in front of the garage to keep the water out of the garage. And the only place that the water that's not no longer going in the garage, that water will go downhill. And we already have a letter from that neighbor to the west, 9 Ferris, South Ferris.
We sent him one.
And you know you got the letter.
Yes, we
And
have a
there-
copy of that.
The existing conditions are such that there's water running on that property. And the work you've already done and proposed to do with the pump is increasing that water that likely will go down to the neighbor. We need to know what you're gonna do about that.
Well, currently, there is no bump. And the driveway, the pavement in front of the garage is really deteriorated. I have photo that which I could show you, but unfortunately, systems it's not allowing me to. Basically, this we cannot add the bump if the bump is a issue. And then water just take its course. Unfortunately, water goes downhill or go wherever.
Yeah, but work you already did without approval.
They started the work, yes, before we were retained, they had started the work. That is correct.
Hello, I'm talking.
My
The
apologies.
work you already did, that without approval, creates a larger impervious area, which creates more water and adds to an existing issue, which the neighbor has pointed out. And I'd like to know what you're gonna do about that.
Before we were retained, they had started the work. Yes, that is correct. We documented what had been started, and one of the solution is by removing the bump at the front of the stucco garage. It would, it would not deviate water from going onto the neighbor. It would just water would do its course as it normally does. The additional pave area that you are mentioning, it could be retained if possible in some kind of retention tank, but this property is narrow and retention tank, as we know, has to be within 5 feet of the property line and 10 feet from any foundation line. So it will have to be a slim retention system.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
You don't have to answer it today. Let's go back, think about it. And come up with some other ideas, and we've got time.
Okay, so the main objection is the water, the additional pave area where the stormwater is being retained.
Yeah,
Just so I have a clear idea, this was all started. We were brought into it. We trying to just make it right.
Okay.
See that homeowner is on, would like to speak.
Let's see where we are first.
The homeowner for 10,
Okay, so you understand the need and the bump, which is gonna divert water only downhill. So you need to work on that. Okay. All right, and let me pull the board here first.
Mm-hmm.
I have no questions.
Mike,
No question?
Mike B,
No questions.
Okay, Sarah, do you have anybody on the public?
Yes, the homeowner would like to speak, Tom Doherty.
Evening, everybody. Thank you. Unfortunately, Frank didn't come to the property. The present architect is on vacation, so I just want to correct some things. There has been no work done on the shared driveway area where the bump is proposed. Only the work that has been done is the side of the dwelling. Pavers were replaced, and the small I believe two staircase footings to go down were changed. Nothing has been done in front of the garage, and we understand the homeowners concern behind us, and we would like to work to rectify that. But just to let you guys know, like I think Frank mentioned slightly, West Home Place has been paved over the years, and a lot of the runoff now comes down our shared driveway and has increased the erosion of our
Oh, you cut out. Mr. Doherty, you cut out. If you can hear us.
with pavement, just pavement over.
The last 30 seconds, you were muted or something. We didn't hear what you said for the last 30 seconds. So if you can recall what you just said and repeat it. You muted again.
No, it's a connection issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, well, the engineer, you understand what needs to be done, correct?
Correct. I understand.
Yes, I'm sorry.
You're cutting in and out. It's a connection issue. It must be on your end. So we understand that the hump is not there now. We know that. But if you put one there, it's going to further exacerbate the western property with more water than they're already getting. Now, when you say shared driveway, is it shared with whom?
No, that was a misstatement. It's a driveway easement. That's what I meant to say.
Okay.
On the other two houses.
So if you have to do any work on the driveway, you need to co-op the two houses to the south.
Not the piece on his property.
No.
Right.
I'm thinking of that.
Let me see if I want to understand that clearly. So if we're doing any work on the drive, we have to also incorporate the other two properties, or the.
I'm just saying, if you're going to work on a solution to the water, if you're going to go south with it, as I don't know if you can or not, you would need the permission to go across the other owners to the south. If a possible solution is something to the south, but I don't know that because I haven't really looked at the topography. All right, so I think where we are is that you, as you said, you're going to look at possible drainage, stormwater retention on site. And the reason for that is you placing the new pavers and concrete has increased the impervious surface, thus increasing more water that has to go downhill. And that would be an issue. Okay.
Caesar, there's somebody else that has their hand raised.
Okay.
Karen Donahue.
That's who we got the letter from. Karen with a C.
Yes. May I speak now?
Can you speak up?
Yes. Hi, good evening. So I am.
Hang on a second, we can't hear you.
You're gonna have to speak very close to your mic because we're not picking you up.
Where is, I don't know where my mic is. How's that?
A little better.
I'll try to speak louder. You let me know when it's loud enough, okay? So I'm at 9 Ferris. I'm directly behind the applicant at 10 Grinnell. And I wanted to just come here tonight and I appreciate the discussion that's had so far, and I wanted to thank the board for raising these questions, and I want to thank my neighbor for, open to response. And the only thing I want to add is that there's also there's a retaining wall that is supporting that driveway, which is just collapsing. So that, I guess it's that hole that you see in the driveway is, breaking through, and there's a hole on the retaining wall. So this is all very, it's not something I understand, but there's definitely water problems. We get like an actual waterfall when there's heavy rain. And I understand you have water problems in the driveway. So I'm sure that someone will figure it out. And I just want to say I appreciate your efforts to come up with a solution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for raising an issue that no one mentioned. The retaining wall is in poor repair. You may want to take a look at that.
It's really, it's, deteriorating and more rapidly and more quickly. So, yeah.
Well, if it's getting pounded by water going by, it's going to deteriorate, yes. Okay, you got that?
Yes,
Kurt?
understood.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Having heard the owner and the concerned citizen downhill, does the board have any further comment?
No.
I have no. No. Nope.
Sarah, any repeat on the public?
No.
Okay, you have your homework, and we'll see you when you complete your tests.
Understood. Thank you. Have a good night.
Right. Okay, thank you, everyone. Only 9:30. I told my wife 10, so I've got a half hour to kill.